I am Brian.
And this is R&B Talks.
R&B Talks and Talks and Talks. What's up, Reg? How's life treating you right now? Look at that. That is Reggie's fake smile. We're just sitting here chatting about being old.
You know, man, there's when you feel like the meh face from the emoji, like there's not a meh enough. You know, it's just funny, man, how you know, there's so many things I try to do and stuff, and it's just like my joints. It's not muscle joints. Yeah. The joints, dude, just say no. Especially my back, man. The back is just freaking killing me. But it's funny. What's funny is, dude, I think I could have a better experience in a rodeo than cutting my grass with my lawnmower. I think that should be an 8-second thing. I should win. I think I should win. Oh, bro. It's just my yard, man. I don't know. And I can bitch about all this stuff.
Reggie's yard looks like a topographical map of New Zealand.
Well, it's just because there's there's so many trees. There's just all these roots you get there, and they're not like big roots. They're little enough to where they're just bumps.
Okay, so
like the whole yard.
So I have to ask you a question.
Yeah,
because I used to do this, and then I threw my hands up. Do you try to get like weedy around every root, hoping? Did you ever try this? You're like, well, I'll just weed around all the roots, and that way I won't run over them. And then you figure out how many stupid roots are in your yard, and you're like, this is the most pointless thing I've ever done.
Yes.
Yeah, I tried that, and then I gave up quickly.
Well, there's a few, like around the trees themselves, like, you know, there's a pretty good span of, I guess you'd say, a radius around it that you can't.
Yeah.
Because just that ain't gonna work. I tried that before, but yeah, there's like a whole bunch of stuff in my yard, man. Because it's just, I have so many trees, and then it's just all the erosion, and stuff throughout the whole, you know, forest area type of thing.
It's just maddening.
But then if I don't cut it, you know, because my neighbors all cut their grass like every week by clockwork and stuff. Yeah. So if I don't do it, I'm the schmuck of the.
You look like the homeless weird dude that's just living in. It's like squatting in the house.
But none of them have the same yard, right? I mean,
they all have the small yard.
They got pretty grass and all this stuff, and here I got like just weeds and moss.
You know what I've gotten into? This is weird, but I've gotten into this thing of I want the lines in my yard. I don't necessarily want like the diagonal lines, right? But now I mow in a certain pattern because I want the pattern of the nice yard, right? As ridiculous and stupid as that sounds, it's just, I feel better when my yard is mowed, that I have like the stripes in my yard and the very neat. And I know dude, you don't have to tell me it's ridiculous. I am 100% clear that it is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
But it's just something I feel better. Like, I'm like, oh, my yard looks nice now. How great, right? I'm not like, you know, and I found out something else too last year. I made this mistake. I was like, you know what? I'm going to drop this mower down to 2, and I'm just going to buzz cut this yard. Well, all that does is cause dead grass spots in your yard.
Well, yeah. There's actually like the 3 inches or something is like the I don't remember. Different,
but here's
different
the question.
grass breeds or whatever.
You're an expert on equipment. You have plenty of it.
Oh, God. I wouldn't say that.
So there's 5 levels on my mower that the deck can go up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Is that inches, or is that just
depends on the mower?
Like I have a Forrest Gump mower. I'm not gonna lie. I look like Forrest Gump mowing the football field, dude.
It just depends on the mower, man. I mean, sometimes it's inches, and I think most of the time that's what they try to do. But like you gotta, if you really want to get technical about it, you measure it from. If you put your lawnmower on level ground,
dude, I'm not measuring.
I know. I'm just saying that's what you.
I just thought it would be like an easy to answer question, right?
No, like, it can be either. It can be all kinds of things. It depends on how old the mower is and whatever. You know.
Dig it. Well, mine is only 3 years old, and I've rebuilt the front end 3 times. Don't ever buy the mower I have, and if you want to message me, and I'll tell you which one it is, because I'm not trying to get sued by a mower company for saying something stupid. But it's a garbage mower. It's garbage.
You know what's garbage?
What's garbage?
Our gasoline. Our gasoline is garbage out of the pump, man. That's where on these on these little 2-cycle things, like your brush cut, weed eaters and chainsaws and stuff, man. I mean, if you can avoid using that damn stuff from the pump, do it.
Dude, you need to get recreational gas.
I know.
Do you know? Do you have a place close? I mean,
we have
one right up the street.
The problem I have is like sometimes I'm like, I have like an hour to get something really done, and I don't have time, so I just got to mix up what I got to, and go for it.
Yeah, I hear you.
And but now I gotta drain my. I have the still the biggest brush cutter that still makes. I know. I spent a lot of money on this big honking weed eater, that has like, you can cut trees down with it. It has a saw blade you can put on it, I have like this thing I use pretty much most of it, brush cutter, or it's just a big, massive string trimmer, right? Yeah. It's a hoss, dude. That thing just, it doesn't matter what's in front of it, it's going to take it down, right? Well, it won't stay running now because of it's sat too long with the pump gas in it. So now I got to drain all of it. I got to take the fuel filter out. I got to do all this crap. And
all right, you're going to take some of my man points for this, Reggie, but I'm going to say it. I've killed about 6 $300 weed eaters. They don't last more than a season. I bought a battery powered weed eater. That little guy is a beast. 40 volt, runs for 2 hours on a battery. I can weed eat my whole yard, clean as a whistle, works perfectly. Now, is it going to cut down like brush and limbs? No. But I have a electric one that's got a spinning blade on the end of it that I can cut through that stuff if I need to. But dude, I bet you in the last 3 years I've spent $1,500 on weed eaters.
I bought a Red Max, dude. That's awesome.
Really?
It's gas. It wasn't, I think it was $300, but it has like a different type of, what they call it, a high torque head or something on it. And that little bastard, it's gas, but it just goes and goes and goes and goes. I don't ever have a problem with it. Ever, ever, ever. It's such a relief to have something like that. But I know what you mean. I tried a battery. That was actually what I tried before I bought that Red Max thing. This has been years ago though. And I didn't get very far in my yard before it died. And I was like, I'm going to have like 7 batteries for this thing in order to do my yard. So then I took it back, and
I'll be honest with you, man. It takes about an hour to weed eat if I don't stop. And I still have 50% of the battery after an hour. Like it's impressive for what it is, right? Like I'm not saying that everybody needs to buy an electric weed eater, or a battery powered weed eater, but for what it is, it's actually pretty impressive.
Dude, the battery stuff, like I really want the new Milwaukee chainsaw that's battery. It's got like 2 batteries on it and stuff. It looks really awesome. I've seen some guys that I like on YouTube use it, and they praise it and stuff about that. I mean, because I'm not tied to like gasoline stuff, dude. I don't really care if hell, it'd be nicer if you didn't have to worry about mixing the gas and all this stuff. Are you kidding? I mean,
how much less expensive would it be, right, to have to not buy gas?
Yeah, but I mean, there's certain things of I get it. There's some downsides, but at the same token, though, it's getting so good now, man. It's like you're almost there. But the DeWalt electric chainsaw is pretty cool. But anyway, So this week has been just an realization of that I'm not, it seems like I'm aging faster than, I know we just talked about aging, but like this week was an illustration of just like, it just seems like my body is wanting to, I don't know, it's just getting more troublesome, right? Because for one thing, I don't know how long I can even mow my grass. It just because I have like a mid-level John Deere 0-turn. It has 0 suspension, 0 nothing. And I feel like I can't walk almost after I get done. Like I literally can't walk upstairs. I have to wake up the next day and I can't go up to my office kind of thing. So there's a lot of pain. just enormous amount of pain. And it's stupid because it's not anything, it's just built up from a life that we live, right? I mean, it's like like we talked about during aging, I mean, you have consequences for things you do when you're young. You just don't see them until you get to be a little older, when your body starts to age, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe I should have stretched more, and maybe I should have.
Something interesting I read the other day. I'm always reading these fitness things, but there's doctors in Finland that have done studies on people who were in like car accidents and or had like serious injuries and things like that when they were in their teens or their early 20s. Some of them don't have occurring or recurring problems until they hit their 40s and 50s, which kind of feeds into a lot about what we're going to talk about today, which is pain and how our bodies handle pain and the different types of pain. Andrew Huberman is an absolute genius. Genius. Sorry, Andrew, I didn't even put that pressure on you, bro. But he's an absolute genius when it comes to neuroplasticity and glycemic pain indexes and the sodium transfer channels that pain go through. And what's really, I think, is strange to me is it's not the pain that is shocking. I've always had pain. We're men, we've broke ourselves and fallen and done dumb stuff, but it's how our pain tolerance level changes over the time, right? Because I'll be 50 in a week. Reggie, you're what, 46, 47, somewhere in there?
Yeah.
Okay. So think about how your body deals with pain now as opposed to how your body dealt with pain 20 years ago.
Okay, but I would say my pain tolerance is higher now.
Well, your pain tolerance is higher, but your perception of pain is different. Like if I would have fallen when my 20s, I would have been sore, I would have hurt, but I would have perceived the pain to be less of
I see what you're saying.
An impedance.
I don't know, man.
But as we get older, yes, we have a higher tolerance of pain because we're not only dealing with the effects of everything that's happened to us through our life, but we're also dealing with the effects of age degeneration in our body. So it's actually probably more pain. But, if you listen to Andrew Huberman, his whole philosophy is it's not that we have a higher pain tolerance. It's that we are more mentally prepared to adjust our lives to our level of pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's tough for me too, man, to be in a place where I'm like, I got to sit down. I'm not going to get up.
Yeah. I can't
kind of thing.
This. Yeah. That's stupid.
It's tough for me to be there. And a lot of times I don't stay there like probably I should.
Yeah.
Because I think about what my wife has gone through and like what her stuff and what she did. And it's not like I'm trying to one up or anything. I'm just saying like
well, you're looking at her and telling yourself, man, I shouldn't be complaining.
No.
Right. It's not a one-upsman thing.
No, it's really that.
It's one of the amazing things I've watched happen was, my mother-in-law injured herself. She fell and she broke several bones and had to have surgeries, and she's in her 70s and she's fully recovered. And to watch her go through those stages of recovery was a very interesting thing to watch, because my recent accident, if you look at how I was, I had surgery. Within 7 days of my surgery, I was exercising. Wasn't doing anything major. I was riding a spin bike for 20, 30 minutes on a real low tension, just to keep myself moving. And then a week after that, I went back to the gym and started doing stretching and body weight workouts. And then a week after that, I was able to start lifting weights again. And I'm going to say something, and this is going to be really suck. A lot of people are going to want to argue with this. I believe that doctors are wrong. Most doctors will tell you when you have an injury, stop moving. I believe that's actually probably the worst possible thing you can do.
Okay. Let me say that has changed for me as well over the years. Like especially with experiencing through my wife's stuff.
Yeah.
They said there's absolutely a period where you need to not move, but it was only like a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was it. And it was a surprise. We're talking even like the back surgery she's had and everything else. It was like, get up.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt. You need to walk around.
Yeah.
It was amazing how they actually suggested they weren't that way where they're saying stay still.
Well, look at how far hip and knee surgeries have come. If you had a hip or a knee replaced in the 80s, they immobilized you for 3 months.
Oh yeah. They're like, no, you're up and walking before you even leave the hospital.
I have an uncle that had a hip replacement, and he was on his feet within 3 hours of surgery being over, and they had him on a walker telling him, you need to walk around the hallway of this hospital.
Right.
And he was within a month out on sidewalks, taking 2-3 mile walks, and it just goes to show because, okay, so let me see if I can explain this. I actually taught a whole class on this because one of my specialties is hip and shoulder and knee replacement recovery. When you have a major injury where you have a body part that's been replaced, a knee, a hip, a shoulder, right? Neurologically, you change because your body recognizes that whatever's in there isn't yours. It has the ability to recognize there's a foreign object inside of our body. Now, through technology, we've figured out what materials our body will accept. Mm-hmm. There are space-age plastics, there are titaniums, there are certain types of steel that our body will accept and eventually will absorb as their own.
Or graft into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the importance of the movement is this. Neurologically, you have to reestablish nerve pathways, blood pathways, all those things get reestablished by moving. So when you become immobilized, right, it becomes more painful. And I'll give you an example, 2 examples. One lady came to me. She was 2 or 3 months outside of her knee replacement. She didn't like the way she felt, so we immediately began doing recovery work. And that meant working with stretch bands, spree bands, doing a lot of stepping, high knee, stuff like that. Within a year, I had this person who just had a knee replaced. She's in her late 60s, able to go from flat on the floor to standing without using her hands or grabbing anything. Because the whole purpose of the exercise was to rebuild neural pathways so that her brain would make that leg function like it should. On the other side, I had a guy come to me who was a year past. He had pretty much immobilized himself. I worked with him for 6 months. The neural pathways were already set. I couldn't recover him in the way I'd recovered her. Now, did we reestablish a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of movement? We sure did. But you've got to get up and move to help. And part of that is pain. Pain is a sensor, right? If the nerves with my eye, when they put the prosthetic in my eye, I still have twitches of pain where that prosthetic is bonding, right? So pain does a lot of things for you. It protects us. It makes us self-aware. It makes us more resilient and stronger. Right? I mean, how many painful things have you gone through that at the end of it, you're stronger and better? I mean, there's so many benefits for pain,
Well, and I think philosophically though, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because I think,
jump in, man.
This was an interesting thing. Okay, let me make this statement first. I'm not going to get into the details about how pain works and the receptors and the dorsal horn and all this kind of stuff.
Don't worry about that. I'll do that.
But but that's part of, and you can look that up, but we'll get there. Philosophically though, pain is one of those things where it's really been talked about a lot through different, and GABA stuff. That's also what I looked into too, because I thought that was interesting.
When you say GABA, like gabapentin,
the GABA receptors, that kind of stuff, that was interesting. So I'm flipping through my notes here. Hold on. So lots of philosophical things about pain because it's an interesting concept though, right? Because it's a physical thing, but it also is like your mind has a lot to do with the pain and how you perceive that and whatever. So it's one of those things that lead to like a lot of philosophical, I don't know, pontification, I guess is what you say.
Well, yeah. Well, but it helps you understand the world.
Well, for instance,
it helps you broaden your understanding of the world and experience, right? Like it's a mental thing too, just like you're saying.
Rene Descartes is used it for dualism, the mind and body separation and all that kind of stuff. Pain was a central part of that. David Lewis used it. Jeremy Bentham, he used that as part of his, how can I dumb that down? A moral, I guess just say part of moral philosophy. There's also a couple of them that used, like I said, there's good pain, bad pain. The consciousness, it's actually associated with like how you can use pain to look at the what the consciousness, the nature of consciousness. So anyway, look, pain is I would say it's critical for our experience that we have. It's an existential requirement. Right?
Okay.
And that's what I can boil all of that crap down to, is just say that, right?
Suffering brings us closer to understanding ourselves and to understanding the world around us.
Well, it's we'll get to the biblical
well, not even on a biblical level,
I know,
right?
But we'll get to there, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. Like even it doesn't matter where you're at, but pain and suffering are ways that the universe uses to tell you who you are.
Yeah.
And kind of even puts you in your place.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson can tell you all that you're made of star stuff, but at the same token, stars don't have pain receptors like we do.
Yeah.
And it's, so anyway, I guess what I'm saying is philosophically, you can go down lots of rabbit holes with who talks about pain and how they use it, and and the connections they make between like the consciousness and this and that. But at the end of the day, for me, there's a physical. Reggie's view of pain, boiled down to really quick, is like there's a physical aspect of pain that tells my body I did something wrong, or I did it right.
Yep.
Right?
That's true.
There's a good and bad pain in that regard, where I know, and I have to tell the difference between it. Something like that's a bad pain that like for instance, my knee. I was doing tire flips. I twisted my knee just the wrong, and it's been bothering me now for like 2 weeks. There you go. That's a bad pain, because that's not something you can do. Now, if I've busted my nuts out there moving a bunch of wood rounds that are 200 pounds a piece, and I'm just muscle sore, that's a good pain for me.
Yeah, that's a signaled pain that shows that your body is getting stronger.
And now I know I'm repairing and recovering things to be better.
Yeah,
but also too, like I have to view pain in a good way. And I have to keep viewing it in a good way and keep telling myself to view it in a good way. This is where I think a lot of people fail at this, is like you have to keep telling yourself pain is not bad. Pain is not the enemy necessarily. That is not how you should probably look at pain. And from my point of view now, it's like that you have to keep telling yourself this.
Here's the problem.
What's the problem?
Here's the problem, Reggie. Somewhere along the line in the last 50 or 60 years.
You can't handle the truth.
I know I can't handle it. Somewhere along the line in the 50 or 60 years, last 100 years, we'll say, we have accumulated this idea of comfort where if we're in pain, we feel like somehow we're being wronged.
Oh yeah, there you
go. Or
go.
if we're suffering, somehow we're being wronged. Let me just say that suffering births endurance and strength and wisdom. Do you know how many years of suffering and heartache and things that we've all went through, where at the end of it, yeah, I have the burden of knowing that I had to suffer that, but I also have the wisdom of knowing what came to me from that. Right. And
the rooster that is out there going nuts is about to experience.
We're about to cook him up.
He's about to get some existential realization.
Have you ever smoked a rooster on the egg? Because we should today.
I have. I have, buddy.
Well, he's about to get it, right? Like, but anyway,
he's going nuts out there.
He is.
Dude.
He's out. He face
we
on.
call him. He's okay. Sorry. Sidebar.
Go ahead.
His name is Napoleon.
You named your rooster?
Yeah, of course you named your rooster.
All right.
Now, unlike all the other roosters we've had, all the other roosters were assholes. Like they were evil, demonic beings that you had them for a necessity to try to help protect the hens and that kind of thing. But you felt really good when you put them down,
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel any regrets. Like the one last time was named Rodney the rooster, right? And he would just go after the girls, right? And I finally got tired of it. I'm like, no, I didn't feel any qualms about taking my Kimber 45 outside and using him for target practice. Now, unfortunately, it only took 2 shots for him to die.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer. I really felt like he could probably be tortured a little bit because he was,
Peter's going to kick your door down.
I don't
Reggie,
care.
You know that, right?
But no, but the thing is,
you know what you should do? You should make him a brisket. Sorry, go ahead.
So we got this guy in a hen. They're like these. They're really cool looking chickens. They're like really bright red and stuff. But they have feathers on their feet. It's weird.
Yeah.
But he's tiny. He's only like this tall, right? He's really small for a rooster.
Yeah.
So we call him Napoleon. He's the coolest, though. He doesn't attack anybody. He doesn't do it now. But on the other hand, though, he really doesn't protect the hens that much either.
Yeah.
So
he's like the foghorn leghorn of roosters. Like he really doesn't do much.
But yeah. So anyway, that's the guy that's making a bunch of noise. I don't know if you can hear that in here, but he's right out there.
He is crooning right now.
He is going nuts. So, what were you talking about?
Talking about pain. You talking about pain.
Yeah. So anyway, Brian, physiologically, right? How would you characterize how pain works in the body? Let's just give a brief, basic overview about this.
So
I have some stuff, but I'm going to let you.
All right, so I'm going to give you a basic breakdown. Okay, this is about as simple as I can make it. Pain receptors in our body. Larger parts of our body have more pain receptors. Smaller parts have less pain receptors. Smaller parts of our body actually have more pain receptors. Like your fingers are going to have more pain receptors than your back. You get cut. Body sends a signal to the spine. Spine sends a signal to the nervous system to the brain. The brain processes that pain and then sends the signal to your body. Ouch, that hurts. Right? Different types
through the dorsal horn.
Through the dorsal horn. And
which is funny because I never even.
Well, also there's several mechanisms that kick in, and the one that interests me the most is the homunculus, because your homunculus is kind of like, I said it before, it's like a topographical map of your body. So when you get hurt, the homunculus will activate and helps the dorsal horn. All that stuff works together to send the right signal. There's the sodium receptors, which are actually what transfers pain, right? But here's the thing. There are people that are born without functional sodium receptors, which also causes them to be people who don't feel pain. Those people usually tend to die very early in life. They don't normally live past the mid to early 40s simply because they don't recognize or understand that they have pain. Infections, things like that can grow in their body and they don't recognize it. So it's basically your body sends a signal to your brain. Your brain maps out what hurts and sends a signal back to your body so you'll go, ouch, that hurts. That's about as simple as I can break that down.
Yeah. And I want to say though too, what amazes me though is there's like a calculation depending on the injury you have, what the response is.
Yes.
Like for instance, there was one time when I cut my leg with my chainsaw, right? Now it wasn't massive, but it was a
good cut.
But I nicked, the chain ran over my leg from a tree that is shifted just the right way. And
it can happen.
Yeah. And it nicked my leg, right?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't even feel that initial cut, right?
Yeah.
And because it was big enough where there was like what they call the shock response or something.
Yeah.
Where it didn't, my body was doing something different with that, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like if you're in a big major accident or something where, like major lacerations or something, you don't necessarily feel that cut necessarily, right? That to me is amazing how the body has this like mechanism to calculate how much pain, when to feel pain. Is that going to be this or that? Matter of fact, that's why it's really bad when you don't feel pain.
Yeah.
You know that you've injured yourself over a threshold that is important.
Well, your body will start to shut down its systems, right? A lot of people don't realize that, it's, when it's cold or it's hot, right? If you're in extreme cold or extreme heat, people don't realize that your body is drawing all your blood to your core to protect your organs. So that's why your fingers and toes and things like that are really susceptible to things like frostbite, heat stroke, all those things, right? So, you know, and an example would be, and it's the only recent example I have, was my accident. When I got out, when I woke up in the car, I felt the pain in my face, but it wasn't the first thing that I was thinking about. You know, I'm a pretty calm dude. I don't tend to panic a lot. So my first thought was, check yourself for punctures. Are you bleeding from someplace it's really coming and you need help now, right? And then once I self-checked, then I kind of assessed my face and realized that something was wrong. I didn't know exactly what. There was a lot of blood coming out of my nose, and I still didn't feel a whole lot of pain. I felt a whole lot of dizziness because I had been jarred really hard and the adrenaline was pumping. But, you know, it's very weird that your body will handle different types of pain. I've broken bones clean, and although it hurt, my brain, it knows that I'm not ready for the pain. So it tempers the sensors in my body to keep me from pain being an overload.
One of them. So I've had 2 injuries that to me were like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And they weren't really bad, but I was playing indoor soccer, which I know it was odd for me to be doing such a thing.
Yeah.
But I won't get into why, but I was being,
it was for a girl, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was playing goalie and I went to block somebody's kick and the ball hit right there on the tip.
Yeah.
And it fractured the tip of my
Ooh.
thumb.
Ooh.
Just a little bit. Right.
Ooh, yeah.
And so it hit and I'm like, that was like, holy bejesus, man. That was like a whole other experience.
That's because you have a ton of pain receptors in your fingers and toes, man.
Yeah. And it was just like one of those things where I was like, holy bejesus. And it was like, you know, I had to go, you know, but there's nothing they could do. They just had to put a splint on it.
Put a splint on it and just heals, man.
The other one, though, was with my heel, where I bruised my heel.
Yeah.
That was an immediate, just like, wham, you are not going to stand on this at all. You are done, right?
Finito. It's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, you know, because like I've cut myself and scraped myself. The other one I did was like just a stupid thing was I was in my old house and I went to go pick up something and I hit the the side mirror on my truck.
Yeah.
And I still have a scar. And it scraped off like part of my freaking head when I came up. You know, just little stuff like that hurts the worst out of anything else, man. It's just crazy.
Worst pain I've ever had is when I broke 2 fingers. I broke them clean. And I looked back on having broken ribs and concussions and fractured skulls, and none of that hurt as bad as breaking those 2 fingers.
That's what I mean. It's crazy how that that's what I mean. Like it gets to the point where when you don't feel pain, you're like, that's when you should say, uh-oh. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there's pain that you can ignore. Like today I cut my calf and it's about that long and it's a pretty deep cut, but it wasn't stitch cut, but it's a good cut. I realized it when it happened, but I was like, I ain't got time to worry about this.
My brother, when I was a teenager, right? My brother was waving around his meat fork in the kitchen and it came out of the handle and it stabbed me and like right there, you know, and then it flew off. And then it was like just shooting blood everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, Reggie, look at your arm. I'm like, what? And I'll turn around. It's like, and you know, and I was like, uh-oh, it wasn't that. It was just funny more than anything, but it's just weird how the body goes through some, you know, stubborn, like hitting your shin.
Yeah.
On something,
breaking a toe, bro. I broke 2 toes on the same foot within 3 months of each other.
But then again, you know, like, I don't know, man. It's like I guess I have never had like a really, really bad injury. Like I've never been in a car accident that was really bad.
Yeah.
I've never had like a fall that this was really bad or something. You know, that kind of thing. So for me, I've not experienced like real bad stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't have like I guess what I'm saying is I don't have like a personal story of anything that was.
Yeah. I tore the pec off the bone on my left side of my chest one time. And
what in the world did you?
I was doing bench press, and it's back when I was,
I have
it's
pulled
back
muscle,
when I was,
but I haven't torn it.
It's back when I was powerlifting, and I was getting ready to go compete. And what's weird is I could bench press at that time. I think my biggest competition bench was 455, and I was warming up with 175, and I was doing something I shouldn't have done. I was coming up to competition, and I'd done really well in the last competition. I was like, well, if I just train a little more, I'll do better. So I was on the 36th or 37th straight day of training. Like I was.
That's not the right way to do it.
But I was 18, 19 years old, and I took 175 pounds off the bench, and I cleared it in the first rep, and I was like, keep going. And then when I dropped it on the second time and went to push, I heard something that sounded like an M80 go off in my chest.
Yes.
And I literally, my left arm just quit working. Like it just wasn't going to do anything. And my spotter pulled the weight off of me, and I sat down next to the bench, and I pulled my shirt down, and I was already turning purple and black. And I didn't know what was happening. And I didn't panic. I was like, I got to get up. I got to move. Something's wrong. I got up and I walked up to the front desk, and apparently by that point I had turned white and I was just pouring sweat. And I told the girl at the desk what had happened, and she goes, do you need me to call you an ambulance? And I was like, no. I was like, my training partner's going to drive me to the hospital. About halfway to the hospital, the adrenaline wore off and the pain kicked in.
Yeah.
And it was literally like I'd taken a shotgun blast to the chest. Like it was almost enough to make me pass out. Like I was fighting not to go unconscious.
That reminds me though of when I was in the gym one time when I was about that age, probably a little older, and one of the guys in the gym did something.
You're going to say popped his bicep off, aren't you?
Yes.
Oh, that's the worst.
And it like I saw it roll.
You saw it pop and go right up into the shoulder, didn't you?
Yeah, it was like one of the most disturbing freaking things. And that dude was screaming.
Okay, so if you ever want to watch a horrifying video on YouTube, there's a YouTube video. Just look up double bicep tear. This guy is trying to show off, and he's got an Olympic bar, and he's on a preacher curl bench with 245s, and he's pulling, and both of them tear off at the same time. Man. And I'm like, how did you do it to both of them? Right. But that's horrifying, dude. That's the worst.
But I think this is a good thing for us to talk about too, because when you're working out, it's very, very, very important to understand pain. If you're working out at all, pain is crucial to understand the good and the bad. It is so important. You have to understand when your body's telling you that's enough. If you do any more, you will experience bad pain. Or, hey, this is good. We're going to repair yourself now. I think it's crucial for anybody doing anything physical to understand those two things, right?
Yeah.
You got to know when enough is enough.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you're like me or you, where we push ourselves far, because I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, is push yourself farther than what you can do. That's going to cause some pain, but that's the good pain where you're like, okay, I've pushed it a little farther than what it needs to, but you go any farther, you're in trouble. Then you're going to have an injury at that point, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a crucial thing for anybody who's doing anything physical.
Well, and just to technically put it out there, the pain receptor that sends the signal for damage is called a nociceptor, which is it's basically what's called signal transduction, which it transfers the signal. You have specific receptors that let your brain know pain versus pleasure. Well, the nociceptors are the pain transferal system that pushes the pain into where you're going, right? And it's kind of cool because your pleasure receptors, they react slower. So pleasure's a buildup, right? Your nociceptors fire like a M60 going off. Like they're letting your body know, bang, bang, bang. So yeah, that's, and they're usually, again, they're triggered by tissue damage, breaks, pinches, scrapes, cuts. Because if you'll notice, if you stick yourself with a pin, the pain is instant.
Oh yeah, it's
right.
Yeah,
it's instant. But if you're doing something that's pleasurable like massage, it starts off a little uncomfortable and builds up to being pleasurable, right? Because that's just a completely different kind of receptor that's sending that signal in your body.
Unless you do a tweenom massage.
I don't even know what that is. That's I'm gonna massage you tween
that's
your eyeballs.
A little Chinese man who is going to touch your muscles in ways that you never thought were possible. Yeah. So when I was going through a bunch of carpal tunnel stuff, right, one of the things that was suggested is do these intense tweenom massage things.
Tweenom
and
massage.
what it is, it's like a deep tissue massage, but on 11.
On crack. Okay.
Yeah. Now the thing is, this is what's funny. He's like, "Oh, you big guy, this hurt a lot," and I'm like, "Oh," no.
And you're like, "Oh, well, that sucks.
This is gonna suck, right?" And because he's really trying to, because because his goal is to your full entire muscle is massaged, not just the top, your whole thing, right?
Oh,
so especially on my legs, okay, I have a extremely large like hamstring and thigh muscles. It's just my quads are stupid. It's just I've built like that, right? He was like under my muscle fiber. I mean, it was something unreal. Yeah. And his feet were on the wall, like, and pushing doing all this stuff to like relax my entire muscle. I literally came off that table. I was like, whoa. And he was like, "Oh, hurt too much?" Like, yeah. Like that was intense, dude. Now, I don't particularly say I'm like this uber, tough pain guy or whatever, but reasonably, I'm no slouch or whatever. It takes something in order to get me riled up like that. I'm telling you, bro, that was, if you talk about massage, if you see it now, the next day you feel fantastic. But that whole day after you are, it's in your, like my pectoral muscles, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, are you done yet?
Get off me.
Oh, it was intense, dude. It was so intense. Anyway, but it's a good thing to do. It's just, but you talk about going through the pain of that in order to feel better the next day is just it's crazy. Anyway,
but that's also a great example of pain for the good of the body.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway,
stretching. So that's a different level. That's a different kind of I guess, a pain if you're trying to stretch yourself out and increase your flexibility rather than a injury type of pain too. And it's interesting how different that is, because your ligaments and stuff, you wouldn't think, why would a ligament have or the stuff around your ligament, why would they have pain receptors there? Well, they do. And that's
people
different.
don't realize that nerves and blood vessels go to the bone.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy, dude. So that's another thing where you got to know, hey, you got to know when that pain is good, when it's bad. And I mean, coming from doing some stuff in my early years, man, that was terribly painful to try to increase your flexibility and stuff like that. But
I think the most painful thing I've ever endured was being stunned with a stun gun. In my younger days, I worked in bars, and I had a guy, didn't even see it coming, man. Like, it was just happening, and he hit me with a stun gun, and every single thing in my body tensed up to the point where I couldn't even bend my fingers. Like, my hands were straight as boards. And he held it there for a second just to let me know. He was like, "Hey, man, let me give you some more of this," right? I remember being on the floor and wanting so badly to get up and move, but I couldn't. Like, in my mind, I was like, you got to get away from this. And I had no control. And it was literally just, it felt like being burnt from the inside out. But what was weird was the moment he took it off of me, the pain went away. I couldn't move very well for about an hour, but the pain went away.
You know what's funny about that too, though, is I know quite a few police officer people, and they've told me stories about this too, how much drugs and stuff will inhibit the pain receptors and
Yep,
the pain
PCP,
responses and all that stuff.
heroin.
Because he said there's been some times where there'd be 3 guys taser one dude
Yeah.
and not phase that guy at all.
Yep.
You know, this is why they carry so much ammo, by the way, is because, you know, some of these people are just jacked up on all kinds of stuff.
Well, and it's one of the reasons why the less than lethal ammunition argument got beat down in the police departments, because, I mean, if you got a guy who's hopped up on PCP or heroin and you hit him with a sandbag, he's just going to keep coming. You know, you got to break that guy down, right? And less than lethal ammo in that situation is not going to help you.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the whole thing. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that these, and this also goes to like pain medication and stuff like that, man. You got to be, you know, my wife was adamant about non-narcotic stuff until she just absolutely had to do it. Yeah. But most, I mean, she tried everything not to do that. Because it changed those are really, I mean, those change your neurological system.
They change that. They change your gut biology.
Yeah, it's like a whole bunch of stuff.
They can, and if you take them long enough, they can change they can get into your cells and change your cellular makeup.
Yeah, it's insane.
People don't realize that a lot of the stuff that is pharmaceutical grade, that doesn't necessarily, when somebody says to you pharmaceutical grade, that don't necessarily mean good.
No.
That just means, yeah, this is as strong as we could get it and not kill somebody. I took almost or very little pain medication after the eye thing, and because I would take it and it wouldn't, here's the weird thing, it wouldn't stop the pain. It just made me not care. Like, it's so weird because my jaw, my cheekbone was broken. My orbital floor was shattered. It hurt, but I would take the pain pill and I would be like, well, it hurts, but I don't really care. It never stopped. The pain never quit. Right. And for me, that was part of the recovery for me, was pain. Knowing where my pain was, right, was very important for me. Because it also will help you if you have pain and you need to go to the doctor. If you go to the doctor and say, well, my leg hurts, they're going to go, I don't know what that means. But if you can go, hey, doc, right inside my right knee, right above where the kneecap ends, right where my quad meets, I'm having some pain right there. Then they're going to go straight after where the pain is, right? Now, don't get me wrong. There's things like, gosh, I always forget the name of this. What is it called? General nerve pain. There's a name for it.
Not neuropathy, right?
No. It's not something that's old. It's pretty recent.
I don't know.
But there's general nerve pain and things like that. Some people have there, but you really need to be aware of where your pain is, right? Like, that's important. Like, if you're just got some back pain and you can't centralize where that back pain is, you more than likely have just pulled something, or you're sore and you need to get over it. Most of the time, if you have a serious injury, the pain is centralized somewhere.
Well, you know what's funny is you just pinged in my head about this memory I had, right?
Yeah.
I can pinpoint when my back started to be different.
Yeah.
When I was in U of L, right, me and some buddies used to go play basketball at the gym in the morning before we had classes and stuff, right? One day I can't remember if I fell or if I was pushed or something, and I fell and I hit the ground right on my back.
Yep.
I can pinpoint that as the exact time when my back changed.
Yeah, you instantaneously knocked a bunch of vertebrae out of alignment. And it never heals right.
No.
And you're too young to think, I better go to a chiropractor and get this fixed.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll be all right.
And I told many doctors since then, I know that this has happened or whatever. And then, they try to fix it, but it's just too, what I'm saying? Not that I'm saying go to the doctor about every little damn thing, but like sometimes there's stuff that you do that you just don't understand the ramifications of that until way later. Right?
Sometimes there's things that you need to have seen just because there's going to be future problems that develop.
And you just don't know. But and it's tough to know what those are. Yeah. Now, I think as you get I think eventually the medical industry keeps going forward. We'll get to the point where we can fix some of that stuff eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing. So I guess at the end of the day, not that we're going to sit, because this is not our job to sit here and talk about the extreme medical biology of pain and all that kind of stuff.
Mysteries.
But for us though, to understand just there's to understand what pain is, and like it's something we need to deal with and be pain is not an enemy at the end of the day, right?
No.
Biblically speaking, pain is very much part of the walk with Christ, especially when because there's a couple things that I want to note. Really, you can look at pain as going all the way back to Genesis 3, where the fall happened, and there's a consequence where now we have pain introduced into
pain
the
during
equation.
childbirth. All that stuff gets introduced,
Right.
Yeah.
It talks about especially in like Romans and James, where it's part of the sanctification process.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's just part of you being, and even when you go look at like, iron sharpens iron. So, that's another, I mean, look, that's
and
not pleasant.
there's other religions out there than Christianity where pain is a cleansing.
Yes.
Pain
even
is
Catholic sects that do that stuff too.
Pain
right?
is a cleansing, it's a catalyst for the growth spiritually. It's a catalyst for your relationship with God and here's what really perplexes me about it. As someone who knows who my Savior is, and I know where my spirituality lies, and I'm very confident in it, when I'm in the crux of pain or a painful event in my life, I'm looking for the lesson. Right, God, you're trying to teach me something. What is it that this is going to get me?
Or you're getting molded in some way.
I'm being smelted into whatever it is that you need.
God's got a chisel.
You've got your
and he's hitting
hammer,
that thing.
and you're forming me into something. But it's what I don't understand is when, and you can maybe elaborate on this, Reggie, because I've been thinking about this. I have had so many Christians in my life, people that I thought were strong in the faith, that will go through something difficult and abandon ship.
Yeah.
Just be like, well, God must hate me. So, my boyfriend broke up with me. My girlfriend broke up with me. My dad has cancer. My uncle lost a limb, and all of a sudden you hate God. Well, I don't understand that. I don't understand where the draw or correlation is that would push a person of faith to think that somehow God hates you because you have to suffer.
I can't speak to like that from a personal perspective because I've not felt that way myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never have.
But I think that because, and I think this goes back to actually what you said about how our culture has demonized pain so much. And comfort over everything is such a priority. Oh. I think that it's bled into some of this stuff too.
That's for sure.
But people don't understand. Like I use this as an example all the time. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in the furnace, right? Well, when Jesus appears there and he's standing there with them, did the fires go out?
No,
they were still there.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure that wasn't like the most pleasant experience for those three guys, right? They didn't get hurt, but the flames were all around. They didn't like the flames were extinguished or whatever, right? Yeah. Sure. All the stories of some of the being burned and boiled in oil and all this kind of other stuff, and being strung up and stoned and all this by some of the come on, man. I mean, this stuff is not.
Well, I mean,
it's pretty
a great
extreme.
example is look at Paul. I mean, Paul was on both sides. He was the torturer, right? He tortured Christians. He inflicted pain. He was stoned when he went to Christianity. He was stoned. He was assumed dead, right? But he wasn't.
He was drug out.
He was imprisoned.
Yeah.
He was
beaten.
And when all of those things were done to him, he still praised God, right? Yeah. He still had that surety.
Look at Job too.
Yeah.
You can look at pain specifically in that story of Job and how it was really a test of his faith.
Yeah.
To stick to God during all those trials and stuff that he went through. Okay. That's an excellent example of like, look, man, this is, we made this bathwater. We got to sit there and wallow in it. You know what I mean? But also too, suffering and pain is a way for us to participate in Christ's crucifixion. It's also like, I mean, because you've got to think about it. He went through the most excruciating of things.
Nobody suffered it more than him.
Now, I mean, you know, and I will say this. Let me just talk. If we talk about pain, there's been some very elaborate medical analysis of what Christ went through, and it's unreal how they describe what was actually going on and all this kind of stuff, right? You know, that cat of nine tails when they did the flaying and stuff, that's no joke, man. That was ripping open and exposing
bone.
Yeah.
Well, taking this into consideration too, and this is something that always frustrated me, was you'd be in a church and they'd be like, oh, well, they placed the crown of thorns upon his head.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no. No, they put the crown of thorns on there and tamped that down around his skull. That was shredding his skull down to the bone. Like people like to, I think it's because there's a discomfort factor, but people like to Sesame Street up the crucifixion of Christ. Listen, you know, I tell people all the time, you think your life is bad? Get whipped with a cat of nine tails, have a crown of thorns hammered on your head.
And then carry a rough.
And then be forced to carry a rough sawn ashen oak cross that weighed around 330 to 350 pounds up a hill while being spat on and stoned.
Drop it,
pick it back up, go to the hill. Then to top it all off, get nailed to the very cross you were carrying.
And they're going to dislocate your arms when they're doing it, by the way.
And then they're not going to platform your feet. So while you're up in the air, you're suffocating. Tell me how bad your life is.
Yeah.
Tell me how bad you've got it, right?
Yeah.
And that is not to say that I disqualify anyone's suffering, right? But one of the things that I have always tried to do, and this might be a ridiculous thing to say out loud, is I've always attempted to measure, if I'm suffering something in life, I've always think of like Abraham asked to sacrifice his son. I think about Christ being nailed to the cross. I think about Paul being stoned. I think about, you know,
Peter being nailed upside down.
Yeah, I think about all of those things, and then I think, yeah, man, I ain't got that bad. Like, oh, I didn't get this thing that I wanted, or I cut myself, or I had a car accident and I survived and I'm okay.
The thing that people don't seem to understand is Rome was, I mean, they were experts in crucifixion and torture and
culturally refined. I mean, the art of bleeding people out.
I mean, we're talking they were masters at this stuff. I mean, they knew how far to go at the most to make it the most excruciating
without killing you.
Without killing you. I mean, it was this is what they did.
Yeah.
And in particularly what it talks about in the New Testament is that they were particularly riled up for Christ's
and on top of that, let me give you guys a little hint. The Romans loved to have criminals and they would torture them right to the point of death. Then they would allow them to heal and then torture them again.
Yes.
Like they took great glee in the destruction of what they considered the enemy or the criminal, right? So, you know, I think that, you know, if I have to look at an example biblically of what pain is, you know, we talk about iron sharpens iron, right? Pain is that tool that is sharpening us. You know, but there's good things too. And this is especially for me, pain will show you who is truly there and who isn't, right? You know, I use this as an example. You know, I had a friend, thought he was a friend. When Caleb was born, my son, my firstborn, I I went to him and I said, hey, I'd like you to be the godfather to my son. And his response to me was, I got to think about it. That was painful because I was like, dude, I thought we were friends. And at that point I realized it was a friendship of convenience for him. And I had to let that relationship go, which I don't really hold any resentment. I probably held some resentment then, but I don't really hold any now because I think one of the beautiful things that God has shown me is he's given me discernment to know the people around me and who they are. But which leads me to another thing. We've talked a lot about physical pain, but there is a definite emotional pain.
Yeah, I would agree. Which is something
that physiologically your body recognizes the same way as it recognizes physical pain. It may not feel the same, but your brain, when you're heartbroken or when you've been disappointed or sadness, your brain recognizes that as a sort of pain, right? So emotional pain is a real thing, right? When you lose a family member, when you things like that, those are actual real forms of pain.
The most excruciating pain I've ever been into is when my mom died.
Yeah.
It was out of the blue. No, you didn't know.
Yeah.
And it was almost like it was a major injury like that, where the very first instance of where you get to,
yeah,
there's nothing. You have no idea how to like grasp anything. Like it's just like, you're just like, I know when I was brought into the waiting room at the hospital, it was just like, I'm 18 years old. I don't know anything. Right.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how to
begin to process it.
No, like it was just
no.
What I was, it was shock. Right.
Yeah.
And then, but like day 2 later go by. Oh boy, you are crushed.
Yeah.
And that was the most painful thing I think I've ever dealt with. Injuries, whatever, it doesn't matter. That was beyond.
Yeah. Those are the kind of pains that they will haunt you all through life.
Well, that took, I'm going to say that was probably 5 years of just my brain being completely messed up. And I just had a hard time.
Yeah.
Period. For at least 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Trying to do a lot, deal with a lot. And I was just messed up,
Yeah.
I ruined relationships. I said a lot of things I didn't mean. I mean, it was just weird how like that, and especially at that time of your life too. When you're a young man,
yeah,
you're not a teenager anymore. You're a young man.
You're already somewhat emotionally deregulated.
Yeah.
That just literally rolls dynamite underneath it.
Yeah. It was so weird.
Yeah.
But but without that event, let me say this is important. I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not so much I'm like thankful for it, but I acknowledge that it was necessary for me to be where I am today.
You acknowledge that you do what you're supposed to do, and you acknowledge that regardless of the uncomfortable and painful part of it, it was part of the plan.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
It's it's I would just tell that to anybody. Like, you're going to go through stuff. You're not going to understand it at all. It will be horrendous sometimes, but then hopefully, and this is what you pray for, that you sometimes get some kind of understanding.
Yeah.
Like how that played out. Right. And that took me, man, I was probably, I don't know. I was probably 30.
Yeah.
Something like that when, and even then it didn't even, I would say I fully didn't recognize and understand where I was, all that stuff until we're talking, man, I don't know, 15 years after that.
Well,
right?
and then, when I was a kid, my mom was mentally ill. When you're like 8 or 9 years old, you depend completely and solely on the wisdom of your parents, right? And we were sleeping in my mom's car some nights, and we didn't eat for days, and I just kept, as a kid, I remember thinking, is this how it's supposed to be, right? And you deregulate, and you become fearful, and you become reactionary,
disassociate, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you do all those things, and you know, people go. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day, and somebody who was having a similar situation with their mother, and he asked me what I did, and I said there came a point in my married life where I had to literally turn her off like a switch.
Oh yeah, that's something.
And I said. He goes, well, that seemed awful easy the way you said it. I was like, no, it was very painful, because there's a point and you realize that this person who is supposed to be this dependable person that you want to have in your life is just never going to be that. And I began to mourn the loss of my mother, right? To me, she was gone. Like even up until the day she passed away, which was 7 months ago, she was gone. 8 months ago, she was gone. And I'd already mourned the loss of her, right? So, you know, and it took me, just like you, until I had kids and got married and started to figure out life and the direction I was going in. Dude, I didn't know what to do with any of that trauma or pain, right? You don't know how do you, as someone who's never had the experience of what it looks like properly, carry something that you didn't have a role model to carry it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is where the walk with Christ is so life altering, in that there is a peace that comes with that when you're doing it and you're trying to do it. I'll say this.
Yeah.
And you're trying to really make your walk the best it can be, and you're trying, and there's a peace that comes about that you will not find anywhere else. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is where it drastically differs from other ways of spirituality, is that doesn't, even when I was doing, you know, Taoism and all this other nonsense, it doesn't, you know, you're like, oh, it's the yin and yang of this, or it's the, you know, this is the karma, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't do the same thing at all. Right. Yeah. There's a very, I can tell you from experience, there's a very definite difference in what it is between those different ways of looking at spirituality. Completely different. One of the things too, I think that's important here, we just talked about years of things from an emotional, traumatic event that took a while. And I think I can say that's way more heavy than if you break your leg or arm, and in a lot of instances. I'm not saying that all physical injuries are like that, but we got to be aware that you know, your mental health is damageable just as much as your physical health.
And there are scars that will happen.
Yeah.
Emotionally and mentally from that, right? That make for barriers. But I want to say something, you know, one of the things that really, you know, brought me a lot of hope and kind of kept me from, is there became a point where I had to look at what was going on in my life, and I either had to make peace with the fact that this was the plan that God had for me, and that there would be a day when he would bring me through this, or I had to honestly let God go. And I just chose to understand that good, bad, right, or wrong, there's a plan behind what he's doing. And I can't argue about that plan. I can't argue about that plan. I can't, you know, I can't do that plan. Sorry.
It's okay.
Unless I have full faith in him. And man, that was, not only was that freeing for me in a spiritual way, but a lot of the emotional damage that was done as a young man was able to be let go at that point, because I just accepted the fact that this was God's plan for me, right? There's glory from that's going to come from this. Do I know what it's supposed to be? No idea. But I am being used by God to fulfill a plan that is greater than I am.
There's also too, I'm going to talk one other aspect of this before we wrap up, is like carrying around guilt and shame about things you've done that's painful.
Yeah, it is.
And that's not a good pain, right?
Not at all.
So that can eat at you and change your psyche, change your character in ways that's not good.
Yeah.
I encourage everyone to understand and deal with guilt and shame and stuff from things you do. And part of that, I'm telling you, man, the whole, Jesus is real and he helps with this stuff more than you can ever think about. And just the one thing to acknowledge is that no one goes through life without doing stupid stuff.
We all make bad, horrible decisions.
We all do evil things. We all do that kind of stuff.
But it doesn't make you an evil person. It just means that you were influenced by whatever it was.
Yeah.
And trust me, there have been moments where I think you would say this too, where I've been like, yeah, I know this ain't the right decision, but this would make things easier.
Yeah.
And you have to stop and go, but what price do I pay for making that decision?
Yeah.
Beyond the fulfillment of the desire that I have at that point, what is the consequence of making this dumb decision?
Yeah.
And it is a dumb decision. When you think it through, usually you're like, wow, that's stupid.
Yeah. 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 It's really dumb, man. It's really dumb.
What I would encourage you to do though, and this is something that, I encourage everybody to do. First of all, keep your circle tight. But secondly, you need to be able to talk to people in your circle about the things that you're going through. God places people in your life, not just so you'll have a buddy but if you got something going on, you got to speak. Sometimes, God puts a word on people. And I use this as an example all the time. I'll use it again. How many times have you been in the absolute gutter? You feel terrible and somebody calls you and God puts a word on you and you speak to that person. You speak truth into their life. And then you hang up the phone and you're like, dude, I should have told myself that. So having that circle of people is where we're determined and we grow and we develop and we become the person that we're supposed to become, right? Don't lose yourself in the ridiculousness of trying to think that you're the only person that can solve your problems. Sometimes it takes that person that God has put in your path for you to be able to say, hey, I'm going to talk with this person and maybe they can give me an aspect or an angle or an opinion on this that may be a little different that maybe I'm not seeing because I'm in the heat of it, right? Like I'm in the eye of the storm. So then really the only thing you can see when you're in the eye of the storm is the patch of ground you're standing on, right? So it's just, I encourage you as just people in general, find good, solid people that you can invest in and that can invest in you, right?
The other thing I want to say here too, and it's along this lines of pain. The book John Burke, there's a couple of books John Burke wrote that talk about near-death experiences.
Yeah.
And these are people, they go through a horrific thing, they experience something. And there's real research that has gone, and I'm not talking about Christian research either. This is like, medical doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists, researchers have really looked into this, right? Yeah. And there's they can't explain a lot of this stuff. Okay. But one aspect, and I don't want to get into like what the existential meaning for everything. I think there's enough evidence to say, hey, there's something that happens from any point of view. You don't just stop when you die. So I would encourage anybody that is wondering, like, who can't see who doesn't have a eternal look at things, to read those books and see kind of what these people who die get brought into another reality, what they experience, and then they're brought back. Okay. Just read those things and understand a little bit about how different the next life just may be.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'll tell you about like pain and suffering and stuff, it doesn't exist in the next life.
Well,
for the believer. Let me make that clear.
One of the things I really clung to, my stepmother passed recently, and one of the things that I really clung to was, man, where she is, there is nothing but joy. Like all the strains of life and all the worries and the things that we need to take care of and the day-to-days and the things that wear on you and they're not there.
Yeah.
You ain't gotta worry about getting the windows replaced and going grocery shopping in heaven, because it ain't a thing, right? So if anything, work towards that.
So that's gonna wrap it up for today, Brian.
That's gonna wrap it up. Wrap it up. I'll take it.
With a bone on it.
All right.
I'm Reggie.
I'm Brian.
This is R&B Talks.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.